So I was born in Milwaukee, and I grew up in Racine, which actually means I speak two languages, English and Wisconsin. And when I finished growing up in Racine, grade school, high school, I moved north to Appleton, went to Lawrence University, and had a wonderful experience with that. But when I finished and did my 4 years of teaching, I decided to go to graduate school out in Boston. So I traveled out to Boston, finished my degree, got a job, got married, had children, and then unfortunately also got divorced. And since I had moved away from my family, those evenings, especially the weekends, in my new one-bedroom apartment were particularly painful, lonely. And so the time I got with my children was precious. And one night in particular, my son Daniel, who was 9, we decided to pick Newbury Street in Boston as our destination. And for those of you who might not be familiar with Newbury Street's a fancy street with a lot of expensive restaurants and stores, but for us it was pretty much the ice cream. And so we went there. Now the challenge though with Newbury Street is it's tough as hell to park. And so we drove around and around and around the block. And finally I said, Daniel, let's just park at the beginning of the block and then wait for a spot to open. And then we'll pull up and get it before anyone else gets it. And so we waited, and we waited, and we waited, until eventually I saw brake lights about halfway up the block. I zipped up, and as I'm zipping up, and that car starts to pull out, I see a car that was parked at the top of the block backing up. I'm like, oh, no way, dude, no way, man. You are not getting the spot. So as the car pulls out, I pull in, and since we're on a one-way street, I pull in as the driver, and I'm now against the curb. That car keeps pulling back. I'm like, Boston drivers, they keep pulling back. They pull up right next to our door, roll down the window and start yelling. So I lean over Daniel, I roll down his window, and I say, yeah? I'm not taking this from the Boston drivers. Yeah, it's our spot. We've been waiting. You better move. I'm like, I ain't moving. I was waiting. Oh, yeah? You don't move. We're going to wreck that car. You ain't wrecking nothing. Oh, yeah? And if we see you on the street, when you get back to the car, you're not going to look the same either. I'm like, yeah, you're doing nothing. And I rolled up the window. And I turned back my seat. I was like, and then out of the corner of my eye, I caught my son Daniel, 9 years old. And there were tears coming down his cheeks. And I'm like, Daniel, what? He's like, Dad, are they going to wreck our car? Are they going to beat us up? Are we going to be able to get home? And I realized that my frustration got me so caught up I forgot what mattered, why we went out. And it reminded me of a time when I was at Lawrence, when I went and studied a semester in London. And after that semester in London, I went to Europe, got the backpack, traveled around for 5 weeks, and it was a blast. Like every day was meeting new people, new train, new city, new fun. And what I learned on that trip is I really, to me, got excited and juiced about deep conversation, connection, talking about what mattered in life, and caring about people. And so that trip in Europe, when I met people who I could do that with, it was super exciting. It's what got me the most juiced. And one particular day, I'm traveling with 2 guys from San Francisco, and we get to Innsbruck, and we get to the pub, and we start having our first round of beers, and lo and behold, 2 people, Robin and Martha, sit right next to us. And I take a fancy to Martha. Black hair, blue eyes, radiant smile. And we start talking. And I take so much fancy, I buy them a round of drinks. Like books? You like books? Road Less Travel? Road Less Travel is my favorite book too. Life is Difficult. Best opening line ever. I buy another round of drinks. Movies? You like movies? Star Wars? Love Star Wars. May the Force be with you. And on the conversation goes. Exactly what I love. And as I'm about to buy the third round drink, because I don't want the night to end, Martha and Robin abruptly stand up and say, oh, gotta go, gotta catch a train, see you, bye. And I was like, well, no number, no contact, nothing. I was like, ah. So it was Europe. A couple weeks later, new day, new city, new train, traveling with new people. I'm with some guys who are kind of checking the box. So we go into the Salzburg Cathedral, they check the box, check the box, check the box, and they hurry out. Have you ever traveled with someone who has an annoying habit? I would probably be that friend who would have the annoying habit, because I'd like to linger. So I'm in Salzburg Cathedral, looking at the architecture, looking at the people, thinking about the history. I come out last. I stand at the top of the stairs and I look out in the courtyard to see if I can find my buddies. And sure enough, they're in the crowd and I find them. I walk up, they're talking to two people, Robin and Martha. I was like, about time you two met. And Robin and Martha turn around and they give me this big hug, like, Greg. And I gave Martha a big hug and I didn't let go for a week. And it was just like I'd hoped. Deep conversation, lots of talk about life, fun, laughter, different cities. It was wonderful. And so when we went back home, and she went to Michigan to continue her studies, I went to Wisconsin to finish mine, we stayed in touch. Now, there were no cell phones. AOL wasn't even invented yet. Matter of fact, the internet didn't even exist. But we had hall phones and letters. Actual pen, paper, put it in an envelope, put on a stamp, send it out. Exactly. And so we wrote a lot of letters back and forth. And she came to my house for Thanksgiving, met my family. I went to her house at Christmas, met her family. And the relationship was so good, I dumped my buddies for spring break to go with her to Florida. This was big for me. We went to Florida, had such a wonderful time. I will say life was not difficult with her. And so when I got back to school, I was going every day to the mailbox waiting for that first letter. And when that letter came, I grabbed it, I ran back to my room, I opened it up, and the first line crushed me. Crushed me. Dear Greg, I can no longer go on being measly friends. I was like, measly? Like, I have you come to my house for Thanksgiving? I go see your family at Christmas? I dump my buddies for spring break to be with you? And this is measly? Measly? Grab a piece of paper. I don't even remember what I wrote. Just put it in the envelope, put the stamp on, sent it off, done. Me pouring my heart out is not measly. So I did my 4 years of teaching, then went to graduate school at Boston, as I'd mentioned. Well, for those of you who might be geographically challenged and not familiar with the upper Midwest, there's Wisconsin, there's Boston, and Michigan is in between. So I call up Martha. I say, Martha, I happen to be driving through Michigan. Would you want to get together? She says, sure. So I time my trip so I can have lunch in East Lansing. And we get there, and the opening small talk was a little awkward. But then she says, and do you ever have a moment where you've been waiting to tell someone I told you so, and they kind of serve it up to you on a platter? This was my moment. After the small talk, she says, Greg, whatever happened to our relationship? Like, Martha, you wrote a letter and called our relationship measly. She said, Greg, I never said that. I said, yes, you did. It was the first line of the letter. She's like, no. I pulled out the letter. I still had the letter. I said, Martha, right here, look, dear Greg, I can no longer go on being measly friends. She says, Greg, do you think that says measly? I said, yeah, measly. She says, Greg, that's not measly. That's merely. I was like, what? That is merely. And again, I had this, and I forgot what mattered. That frustration, that anger that showed up, I held on to. But what really mattered, and actually do this test with me, it may be true for you as well. Just hold up your fist for a moment. And now think of every single time in your life where something didn't matter at all. You didn't care about it. You never even gave it a thought. But you got angry, anxious, upset, frustrated, or resentful over it. Every time you can think of a moment like that, put up a finger. Yeah, you can't. Because why? These emotions don't show up unless something really matters. And here had been my mistake. When the emotion showed up, I held on to it like it mattered. It didn't matter. The emotion was simply a messenger bringing me a message to let me know what mattered. And if I could figure it out and have that relationship with my emotions, I could let the emotion go, reach in, get the message, and then live out of the message instead of the emotion. When I was a consultant, still am, travel a lot for work. After one particularly long week, I get to the airport on Friday. I get to the gate, and I'm excited, wiped out, tired, but excited, because I'm going home to my son's birthday. And I missed the whole week. I didn't want to miss this. At the gate, get the announcement. Sorry for a slight delay, but we're delayed because the crew isn't ready. What, crew? Not ready? I'm like, what the hell? You had the whole all week to get ready. What do you mean not ready? And I look at my watch, and I start calculating. Tick, 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 because I have a tight connection. And if I miss my connection, I miss the party. So finally, announcement, we get on the flight, we land. As we land, I'm looking at, still calculating, I have 9 minutes to catch my connecting flight. I run off the jetway, nervous. I grab the guy there, I said, where's the connection to Boston? He's like, right there. And lo and behold, I was so lucky, it was the next gate over. I look, the door is open, the plane is still there. It's empty, but it's still there. I run over, I'm like, oh, thank you. I made this flight. I thought I was going to miss it. She says, sir, the flight's closed. I'm like, flight's not closed. The door's open and the plane is here. Flight's not closed. She says, sir, there's no need for you to raise your voice. Calm down. Now, just a little side note. In the history of calm down, no one has ever calmed down by someone saying calm down. And so I say, this door is open, the flight is here, and it was your company that caused me the problem of being late. So I'm getting on this flight. She says, sir, you go to get on that flight. I'm calling security. This is my... I was like, ah! Wait, I teach this stuff. It's not about this. It's about you getting home to your son. Oh, how do I let go of this and get home to my son? I turned back to her and I said, ma'am, I'm sorry. You're right. I should not have raised my voice. You're just doing your job. It's been a long week for me. If I can get on that flight, I can make my son's birthday party. Can you help me? And she said, let me see. She went down the jet. We came back and said, the pilot said you can get on the flight. And I did, and I made the birthday. It was well fortunate that one of those moments where I could catch what caught me and not make it what mattered, but be able to let it go and get the message so I can realize what really matters and then move on. I read that the true measure of our maturity and wisdom is how we can handle difficult emotions in trying times. And if we can do that well, we can live wisely and well. And I realize for me, if I can, when I feel this, if I can realize it's not about this, that if I can embrace this, get the message, and then let this go and live out of the message, I can live more wisely. Thank you.